We're out here in the middle of Nebraska, right by Kearney, Nebraska to be exact, at the site that used to be Kearney City, or what we know as Dobytown. Now if you go back to my top 5 ghost towns of Nebraska video, you'll see that I mentioned Dobytown as the number 2. And this is really interesting because Dobytown really existed because Fort Kearney was about 3 or 4 miles off to the east, and we're going to go see Fort Kearney next. You can see here though in my video that there's not much left of Dobytown, and that is kind of the standard of a lot of Midwest ghost towns in general. If they're not really in a dry climate or a mountainous climate, the rain and the harsh weather conditions usually run those ghost towns down, and eventually they become one with the earth. And so as we kind of look at the ghost town here, we see that it is a cornfield now, or farmland, and that again is pretty typical. So Dobytown really got its mark because of a couple trails merging together. One of the most popular trails was the Oregon Trail, going east to west and heading westward, and Kearney was a perfect place for them to kind of stop and get supplies and rest. And that is where Fort Kearney really came into existence, because the U.S. Army realized that they really needed to protect those travelers and set up a fort at that location. Of course, as time progressed, we see that the Union Pacific Railroad came into existence, and that really caused the end of Dobytown. Dobytown really got its name because of all the adobe huts, or the mud shacks, that kind of existed in the area, and so it got that nickname rather than Kearney City. Kearney still exists today, it just shifted further up to the north where the railroad was really running by, and so the trail itself, or the Oregon Trail, and even the railroad for that matter, really kind of follows the Platte River. And so you can kind of see this area as kind of a natural, flat, trail-ridden area historically. Let's go to Fort Kearney next, because that is a pretty cool place. A really cool reconstructed fort of Fort Kearney. Kind of gives you an idea when you look at Dobytown, which I was showing you earlier, and the existence of that town and the fort nearby. So Fort Kearney was built, just like I said before, to protect all the immigrants who were heading out on the Oregon Trail out west, and the Oregon Trail kind of went along the Platte River, and so they originally built this fort in the wrong spot. Actually, if you look historically on that, they had to move the fort, and so right around 1848 is when they established the fort here at its current location. They had to, because the wagon trains were totally bypassing the fort, so they had to change that, and the whole reason why the Army built the fort to begin with was to protect those wagon trains. So Dobytown was built nearby, and it was kind of the town that kind of supplied the fort. Its whole existence was because of that to begin with. So there was gambling in that town, there was prostitution in that town, there was kind of the old stories of the Wild West, everything that you kind of think about. Dobytown kind of fit into that existence, so it was kind of a wild town. And if there's an old story that kind of goes along with this, that General Tecumseh Sherman made a stop here at Fort Kearney, went to Dobytown, had some whiskey, and it was the worst whiskey he ever had in his entire life, and he nicknamed it Tanglefoot. True story. If you get an opportunity to stop out here in Kearney, Nebraska, I recommend stopping at the Kearney State Park. That's where you'll see the fort, and you'll get a lot of the history of what was going on around that time period. One other thing that I really like what they did here at the state park is they went ahead and they laid out, you can kind of see where they had maybe different barracks or they had different warehouses set up that of course no longer, but at least they marked how big they were and where they'd be at. Kind of really cool to see this reconstructed flagpole that they use, and they have the model. It just kind of shows you how big it is. The original flagpole was actually 90 feet tall, and how they did it was they banded two tall trees together, and of course they had steps of rungs that led to the crow's nest, where of course they would climb, and that's where they would go each morning and fly the flag. A lot of Midwest ghost towns, like I was talking with a couple others earlier, they don't exist anymore. Some of them are just cornfields or they're plowed under. But we do have the stories that kind of remind us of what was going on historically during its existence. Dobytown, one of them, the existence of the Oregon Trail, and Fort Kearney, all wrapped up in the history of the ghost town of Dobytown.